Hello, and welcome to Health Fitness Redefined. I'm your host, Anthony Amen. Join me today as we take a dive into the world of health and fitness, where we learn how to overcome adversity, depict fact versus fiction, and see health and fitness in a whole new light. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we will be talking about, I guess we're putting my college degree to the work, because I do have a degree in psychology of health, so I'm really excited to talk about this. We have a guest on today. It's going to talk about everything besides the, okay, go exercise and eat right kind of phenomenon of how to lose weight, because weight loss is more encompassing with the power of the mind to help control about what you're eating, how to take care of your life. So without further ado, let's welcome to the show, Dr. Candice Seti. Dr. Candice, it is a pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to be here.
Hope you liked that little intro.
That was
Finally able to
great.
put my psychology
I
degree to
didn't
work.
know you had a psychology degree. That's wonderful.
I left that one out.
Uh-huh.
Little shocker as we come in. But I was like, all right, I went through 4 years of school. I got a degree. Might as well put it all together in
There
one
you go.
episode
Let's
with you.
challenge you. I love it.
Without further ado, let's talk about you and how you got into this field in the first place.
Well, I mean, the overarching field of psychology was kind of a no-brainer for me. I mean, I always knew from a very young age that was where I was going to go. I loved talking to people. I loved helping people. I loved supporting people and kind of moving them through their journey. So that was sort of a no-brainer. But my specialization in kind of weight loss and weight management came through my own experience with dieting and weight loss and diet dependence, and getting more understanding of the dieting world and the diet dependence phenomenon and yo-yo dieting, and really thinking there had to be another way. But if you look for it, you can't find it. There is no other way out there, right? I mean, when we think about weight loss, we go to dieting and that's it. And because I didn't want to be that diet dependent person that I was starting to become, I sort of started doing things differently myself, looking at my issues, my relationship with food, my cognitive impacts on eating, my behavioral factors that contributed to eating behaviors, all of that stuff. And through that process, I realized, one, it was much more effective and much more sustainable, and two, I really wanted to find a way to apply that to the people I was working with, because almost everybody I was working with struggled with body image issues, with self-esteem, with gaining and losing the same 20 pounds, and binge eating behaviors, and unhealthy relationships with food and sleep, and all of these other things. And it just seemed like a no-brainer. So, I kind of went back to the drawing board a little bit, got a lot more education in some of the kind of ancillary areas. I became a nutrition coach. I became a personal trainer. I became a weight management specialist. I became an insomnia treatment clinician to address all of the other things that are going on there that tie in so significantly to weight and our relationship with food. So really, it started with my own issues and wanting to provide for everybody else what I was able to do for myself.
Yeah, I think that's kind of how we all get started in this realm. It's okay. How do I fix myself? Now, how do I
Uh-huh.
give that to other people and pass that
Exactly.
along?
Exactly.
So, I want to get into the broader sense of this first before we kind of bring it in. And that is, what is health psychology? Like, what is the psychology of weight loss? So what does that even mean?
Well, I mean, we're always talking about, the way our thinking and our behavior influences our outcomes, right? And the old school mentality around dieting is just, let's consume less calories and let's burn more. And it has nothing to do with how we think. It has nothing to do with how we feel. It has nothing to do with how we react to other people. It doesn't address anything else. It's this insanely simplified model. And the reality is, we are very complex as human beings, and our thoughts are incredibly impactful to our behavior, right? When we're feeling super gung ho and motivated, maybe we do really well. And then we have a day where we feel down on ourselves, or, we don't do something very well and we start beating ourselves up. And then all of a sudden we're turning to food in response to that. Or maybe we have a very complex emotional relationship with food, which a lot of us do, where, when we get stressed or when we get sad or when we're bored or lonely or procrastinating, we use food to, respond to those things. And dieting doesn't address any of that. We also have all of these different, what's called cognitive distortions, ways that we sort of distort our thinking to lead us to certain behaviors. And classic examples that a lot of people can relate to on this are, somebody's on a diet, say, and they have a plan of this is all I'm going to eat. And maybe they go to a party on Thursday night and they eat an unplanned cupcake. And from there, they say, cognitive distortion, well, I've just blown my diet. Might as well eat everything on the planet for the rest of the weekend, and I'll start again on Monday. And clearly, this is a way we're distorting reality to fit into these cognitive schemas, because we all know eating that one cupcake, certainly not the greatest, not a super healthy choice, but it's also not going to make or break anything. However, eating everything in abundance the entire weekend will set you back many, many steps from your goal. So it actually ends up being a form of self-sabotage. And what you really need to do, as opposed to being stricter on your diet, is address some of those cognitive distortions and the ways that you're thinking wrong, so to speak, engaging in what we call thinking errors. So there are so many different facets to this, from addressing, our habitual thinking patterns, to our behavioral situations, to our emotional relationship with food. And so really that psychology is about looking at all of those other things and getting you to a place where you've made habit change around all of those things in a way that's truly sustainable, which we know diets are not.
Great answer. That's all I have to that one. But it's a couple of just things that came to mind. It's just to get some more examples. This is kind of the same way with our relationship to alcohol that a lot of people know.
Sure.
I'm gonna have a drink when we're celebrating. I'm gonna have a drink because things went wrong today.
Mm-hmm.
And we're taking that emotion and therefore attaching it to food or to alcohol in and of itself. Where in reality, we have to learn how to separate all of that. Like, just as another like tidbit to myself is, in the last couple of years, I've really got a good grasp of this, where I don't need to have a drink to just because I had a bad day. I'd actually prefer not to, because to me, I need to implement all my other systems to help get over whatever's causing me to stress out. So it's taking more positive approaches, like just getting away from the food for the emotional, but instead eating because you have to, and eating foods you enjoy, but instead of just taking it based on pure emotion.
Oh, definitely. And, to that point, with alcohol and with food, especially with food, somebody has a bad day and it's very common that they turn to food. They turn to a comfort food, or, I deserve this, or this is my reward for having a bad day. And the reality is that usually makes you feel worse after the fact. And not only do you probably feel like physically a little bit worse because you probably haven't gone to a food that makes your body feel particularly good, but then we have the guilt shame cycle that comes from turning to food emotionally, and the ways we're beating ourselves up and telling ourselves, I have no self-control and I'm not capable and I can't do this and I'm so weak and I'm so dependent, and all of this negative self-talk that comes with it. So that behavior of eating the ice cream or the pizza or the cake or whatever it is may make us feel better for about 15 or 20 minutes, but it makes us feel pretty bad for sometimes days afterwards. And when we can start to look at that and see that ahead of time, that's when we can truly make change around that behavior.
Yeah, and I think just sorry, I got to my honest, I got a slight cough, so bear with me.
Go ahead.
As we progress, and it's one of the little changes we made in our gym, is all we have a trainer bio wall, right? And it doesn't say favorite sweet, it doesn't say favorite cheat meal. Instead, it says favorite treat meal, because it's taking a positive into rewarding ourselves with that kind of food. So a good example is I'm rewarding myself for doing so well this week. I can go and have my favorite foods like a baklava, and I don't have to have that guilt shame cycle because I did such a good job. Now I can celebrate and have my food, and it makes it taste so much better. Whereas on the flip side, if you have a negative side of a cognitive relation to it, this is my cheat meal. This is something I could just throw in. It creates that negative downward, like you're cheating on yourself and you feel gross afterwards.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it's trying to change the psychological approach around how we eat and why we eat.
Absolutely. And I would even challenge the idea of reward eating, because reward eating still is a form of emotional eating. It's just associating it with the positive emotion instead of the negative emotion. And the idea is no food should ever be off limits. No food should ever be restricted, right? I mean, if you restrict something, you ultimately make it the most powerful thing in your universe, and it overtakes you. So if you want pizza or you want ice cream or you want baklava, you should be allowed to have that. But just, I tell people, just plan for it. It doesn't need to be a reward. It doesn't need to be a punishment. It doesn't need to be, emotional. It's just, hey, on Friday night, I'm going to go out and get baklava because that's what I want to do on Friday night. And by taking the restriction away from it and allowing it to be part of your life in a healthy way, you feel like you have the power over it instead of it having the power over you. And that's a huge problem that we see with everybody who's a
Oh yeah.
frequent dieter.
And I think if you really want to find out how it looks from an outside point of view and you really want to see like, oh, wow, I really do that, go talk to somebody who has a food allergy.
Mm-hmm.
And not just a mild one. Like if you have a deathly seafood allergy, go ask them how many times a day they think about, oh my God, does this have shellfish in it?
Uh-huh.
It's obsessive. And like coming from
Mm-hmm.
someone like me who's lactose intolerant, I try not to think about it, but I just have to be careful about how much dairy I have because
Yeah.
it's going to destroy my day. Not
Yep.
mentally, it's all physical. But you
Yeah.
just obsess, and that's kind of the point. And when we do things ourselves, we don't see it. We just think it's normal. But when we see somebody else doing it, then we start realizing, oh, wow, that really is like an obsessive.
Yeah.
Oh, am I doing that same thing too? And the
Yeah,
answer 9 times out of
exactly.
10 is yes.
Well, that's exactly why we need to all look at our own behavior and examine it almost as if it was external, to say, what am I doing? Why? Where is this coming from? And what can I do to change it? Because most of the where it's coming from is either just buildup of habit over time, right? And that's a good chunk of it. And a lot of it is rooted in, again, either our own self-attack, our own upbringing, or our own faulty thought patterns, all of which can be addressed and changed.
Yeah. So I guess the next question kind of flow right into it. What would be the first step of change for somebody when they start noticing they have an unhealthy relationship with food?
Well, I mean, like we just talked about, it's looking at it, right? You have to kind of put yourself under a microscope and start paying attention. What are you eating? Why are you eating it? What's calling you to that? How do you feel about it? What are the emotional aspects of it? And I talk about this in a food tracking way, but not in a, obsessive, I'm tracking calories and macros way, but in a, I'm just tracking what I'm eating, when I'm eating it, and why. And am I eating because I'm hungry? Sometimes. Okay, great. Am I eating because it was there and I walked by it and I thought, ooh, I want that? Am I eating because I was procrastinating or I was bored at work? Am I eating because it was late night and everyone was sleeping and I could sneak this thing? Am I eating because this food was calling to me? Am I eating because I was having physiological cravings? Am I eating because I was having emotional, mental cravings? Am I eating because I had this association with this time, this experience, and this food? But looking at all of it so that you can start to understand where your patterns and issues may lie. So then you can look at addressing them and putting behavioral change plans in place. But you have to know what it is. You have to know what you're fighting in order to fight it.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So once you kind of start logging and getting an understanding of this is how I'm eating, this is why I'm eating, what's something actionable that somebody could take after that?
Well, I mean, if we're talking about emotional eating, which a lot of people struggle with, Let's say somebody often just eats when they're bored at work. And I see this a lot. People have fairly monotonous jobs where maybe they sit at a computer all day and there's not a lot of change or variety or interaction in their day. Every hour or so, they find themselves wandering into the break room, just looking, or if they're working from home, wandering into the kitchen, opening the fridge, just looking, not because they're hungry, but just because that's the way they've chosen to address their boredom. And that's that association that they've created. So they don't even think about it. And once you identify that, you can then say, okay, what can I do in that circumstance? If every hour I'm walking into the break room or walking into the fridge, I know I need a break every hour. What can I do instead? What would feel good? What would take care of me? Can I make a plan to go outside and take a walk every hour? Can I make a plan to stretch every hour? Can I make a plan to, play a video game on my phone every hour? Can I make a plan to call somebody? What can I do knowing that my body physically needs that break? It needs to get up from my computer and change scenery or change my experience, but I don't actually need to eat. I've just associated eating behavior with that. So again, by identifying that, you can then say, what can I do differently? And once you have that, what can I do differently plan, you need to be really consistent with it. Because when we're talking about habit change, it doesn't just mean today I'm going to do that and focus on that. It means for weeks and sometimes even months, I'm going to do that and focus on it so that you can create a new habit. And that's what we're talking about with most of our relationship with food, is creating new habits.
Yeah, that's really good. So it's just creating new habits to try to understand about why we emotionally eat, and then making small adaptable changes. We've talked about habit forming a lot on this podcast, so it's something my audience should be used to. Don't go 100% into something, because then ultimately you're just going to lead to a crash and burn. Instead, take small actionable steps and get used to that before you go ahead and add on the next step. So as an example, if you're stress eating, I'm going to over exaggerate here, stress drinking 10 cups of Coca-Cola, whatever, make it 9 for the first couple of weeks. And then after you make it 9, then make it 8. And then just slowly get used to those smaller steps so you don't experience any kind of burnout or disheartening. It just becomes easier to move forward with
absolutely. It's the New Year's resolution issue, right? It's when people say, for New Year's, I am going to not eat any sweets ever again. I'm going to meal plan every meal. I'm going to prep everything ahead of time. I'm going to go to the gym every single day at this time. And they plan 101 changes, and they, within 3 weeks, they're completely burned out because it was too much and they didn't give themselves that adaptability point. And when you make these small changes, one, it's easier to focus on them because it's just 1 or 2 small changes. 2, once you have them in place, you can continue to make change from there. But the idea of baby steps, as cliche as it sounds, is really what most of us need to make any kind of sustainable change. Again, it's why diets don't work, because a diet is very, very different from how most people are normally eating. So it's a lot of change all at once, as opposed to just a small little baby step. And that's why most people last about 3 weeks on a diet, because you can't keep up with that amount of change for that long. It's just too much shock to your system and you rebel.
Yeah, and if you want, go check out the episode we did for New Year's about New Year's resolutions.
Oh,
in
yeah.
of itself, a lot of it's related. Just a quick summary of it is, I make New Year's goals every year. January 1st, I don't like going out New Year's Eve. I actually wake up early New Year's Day, write my goals out, and I take the 10,000-foot view. Okay, where do I want to be at the end of the year? I take the 12 months, I divide out that by the 12 months, and then I have small actionable steps per month to get to where I need to be. I do this more for a business sense, but you could easily change this over to healthy eating or extra steps. I want to walk 12,000 steps a day by the end of the year. Okay, so January walk 1,000 extra, February walk 1,000 extra, and then you're slowly going to get to that 12,000 instead of just jumping right into it first. We're going to talk about more outside of the emotional. I would love to hear about how you actually deal with societal norms and teach people which way to go, because you get a lot of garbage from news cycles and Google and how to lose weight in 10 days kind of stuff that people are constantly bombarding you with the same 100, 400 questions that we get. So I'd love to hear your answer to those. We're going to take a quick break from our work for our sponsor, guys, and we will be right back. You hear me say time and time again, diets don't work. That's right. Every kind of keto, Mediterranean, intermittent fasting, all of these diets we talk about just don't work because they lack one thing, and that's teaching you how to eat. That's why at Redefined Fitness, we've decided to offer 2 brand new nutrition programs to teach you how to eat. Our basic and advanced programs will use our app where we're going to customize your macros to your needs. So if you can't eat shellfish, if you can't have dairy, we're going to adjust that to you. You will have access to a coach where you're going to be able to send pictures of a menu and say, hey, I want to make sure that this fits inside of what I'm looking to do and how I'm looking to do it. What's going to shock you the most? The amount of food you're actually going to end up eating. Most of our people that do this end up eating more calories than they've ever done in any so-called diet that they've done before. So if you're interested in not only losing weight, but learning how to eat healthier for a more substantial future, then please reach out to us at Redefined Fitness at www.redefined-fitness.com. Again, that's www.redefined-fitness.com. Mention the code podcast and get 10% off of either of these programs. Again, mention the code podcast and get 10% off on both our advanced and basic nutrition program at Redefined Fitness. And don't forget, you don't have to live nearby in order to take advantage of these programs. Buddy, and welcome back. We got Candice here. We're going to talk a little bit more about how to kind of work through our society. And it's, especially this field, especially with weight loss and health and fitness, everybody's an expert. I don't know if you knew that. Your friend who lost 10 pounds knows more than your personal trainer or psychologist. One has a degree in it, supposedly. So we're going to give you real big action stuff. So I'd love to hear you do it. So let's talk about first the changing atmosphere, and then second, how you talk about it. So the changing atmosphere, which I'm relating to in general, is there used to be a whole image like Victoria's Secret as an example. This is the picture perfect of what a woman should look like. And then over the last 5 years or so, has slowly shifted. Would you yourself say something like that is healthy or not healthy, and why or why not?
Well, I mean, I'm probably going to gear towards not healthy in the sense that, there's always some standard or some ideal societally. And because we are all human and all individual and have our own bodies, what's ideal for me or you is different than what's ideal for anybody else. And there's no real way to say I'm going to become that. And the better way to approach it is, what's the best version of me? And how can I take care of myself in a way where I'm happy with myself in every way imaginable? I'm happy with my behavior. I'm happy with my body. I'm happy with my strength. I'm happy with my interactions. I'm happy with how I feel. And it's amazing how when you feel good in your body, you feel good about your body. And this usually comes from taking care of yourself, not necessarily from saying I have this 6-pack or, I look like this model or whatever it may be, but you're just taking care of yourself and nurturing yourself and appreciating your body and everything it does for you and wanting to treat it well and getting the benefits of doing that. All of that tends to naturally change our body image over time. So I like to steer people in a direction of saying, what makes you feel good? And what makes you feel good in your body? What makes you feel good about your body? And how can you keep incorporating things like that into your life to develop better self-image, to develop better body image, to just develop confidence and security in who you are and how you carry yourself. And those changes tend to lead towards better outcomes, I find, than saying I want to look like that person or what that ideal is.
Yeah, and I think this is a huge, I don't know why it's controversial, but it is. But I'm going to give you, I like your answer, and I think I'm going to branch off of that a lot, is having the different description, especially nowadays, where don't think of it less as this is what I look like. Think of it more as what's optimal for my health.
Mm-hmm.
Like, right? So your brain is controlling every aspect of your body and how you move and how you think and all of that stuff. Everything comes from there. If I'm feeding my brain garbage, my brain is going to produce garbage, regardless of one extreme or the other. So taking an ideological of telling people that, you know, even if you're 250 pounds and really obese, it's okay. It's not, because that's not optimum for your brain. Your brain doesn't process well under that. Your brain doesn't give back good cognitive information under the back. That you're going to live a shorter life. You're going to have crazy hospital bills. You're going to be sick. When ideally, instead of thinking of this is my outside image, think of it, what does my inside image looks like? How do we perceive an inside whatever, I don't even know how to describe it, just inside beauty, I guess, with lack of a better word, of how someone feels. And I don't mean that of personality, which is also a great thing. I mean that in more of a sense of how are my neurons firing? How's my breathing pattern? How's my heart rate? How's my cardiovascular system? How's my blood pressure? Are all of those at their optimum levels, so it can help my brain have an easier time day by day and live a longer, happier, healthier life? And that's a really hard thing to sell to people.
Well, partly because it comes down to treating ourselves well and caring about ourselves. And in general, we're not so good at this, right? Most of us tend to have a much easier time being nice to everybody else than we do to ourselves. And I use this example all the time with people. Let's say we go about the day and we do 100 things over the course of the day, and we do 99 of them right and one of them wrong. At the end of the day, what are we focused on, right? We're focused on that one thing we did wrong. We are beating ourselves up saying, I'm such an idiot. I can't believe I screwed that up. I'm a failure. I always do everything wrong. However, if that were a friend and a friend had done 99 things right and one thing wrong, we would be telling that friend, you are amazing. Look at you. You did 99% of things right. How incredible are you? And we'd be hyping them up. But we take a much more negative focus on ourselves, and we tend to be hardwired for self-critique with that mode of self-assessment. So much of this is about changing the way we treat ourselves and the way we talk to ourselves, and learning to treat ourselves with love and treat ourselves like a friend, and say to ourselves, I am amazing. I did do 99% of things right today. How cool am I? And starting to treat ourselves that way and think about ourselves that way from a point of love and acceptance, to then be motivated and driven to want to do things to care for ourselves. But it usually starts in the way we talk to ourselves, the way we treat ourselves, and the way we love ourselves, really. That's how you get to the place where you can decide, it's important for me to take care of myself. It's important for me to make myself feel good. It's important for me to live a long, healthy life and engage in behaviors that make that possible.
So, what are some minor behavior changes you could give to our audience listening now, that things they could change in their own life to help have a better relationship with weight loss and making themselves feel good?
Well, like I said, using that example about how we are kind of hardwired to focus on the negative, I encourage people to start making a point to focus on the positive and give yourself credit every day for all of the things that you do well, because there are a lot of them. And again, at the end of the day, most of us are not focused on those things. We're focused on maybe the two things we weren't happy about. And using that as a food example, it may be, I'm really pissed because I ate that donut at work and I didn't want to, and I'm annoyed with that. But then we could also say, but also I made myself a healthy dinner. I didn't overeat. I went grocery shopping and made a meal plan for the week. And, I went for a nice leisurely walk with my dog that felt really good. And I did some stretching and some meditation in the afternoon, and I feel good about that. And what most of us do is we just focus on I'm pissed because I ate that donut in the morning. And how much would we change our behavior and change our focus if we simply said, let me look at all the things I did well today. Let me look at all the things I'm really proud of today and do this and pat myself on the back. What might that change in my self perspective tomorrow? How might I feel about myself tomorrow? Am I going to feel better, stronger, more capable, more important, more valuable? And what is that going to change in my actions, in my decisions, in my behavior? So simply starting to shift our perspective from always being focused on the negative to start being focused on the positive can have a lot of change. And, reminding ourselves what's great about us, how we are wonderful, how we are awesome, how our body supports us and takes care of us, and how amazing it is, and how strong it is, and what it does for us every day. And simply acknowledging all of that can be really powerful in making some change in how you treat yourselves.
Yeah, I mean, just no one here is perfect. So don't think that just because we're talking about how we're both really good at doing this. Just as a good example, the other day I had a really bad day. But listen, I'm saying it wasn't a bad day. So many things that day went right. I actually had a really good day, but there was one thing that was such a shock to me, and I just felt myself obsessing over it and just bringing myself down. I was just like downright distraught from that one particular set of news. Everything else was phenomenal, but that one thing was like, oh my God, what if, what if, what if? And then I hear myself saying, hey, Anthony, if this was somebody else, you would say, throw your ifs out the freaking window and step on them. Because you can't live life off of what's going to happen after this. Instead, what can you do today to make tomorrow better? And it takes even people like us, like this is normal. Like we just,
it's human.
Okay, you're right. Like I slept like shit. And I woke up the next day and I'm like, let's take a deep breath and let's do one thing at a time, get back to the flow, get back to fixing, and we'll make this work. We've got through worse before together. So just an idea of just showing that there's always things out there that are going to bring you down, but it's just, even if it's just, oh, I ate well today. Great. That's awesome, man. That's great. I got my 8 hours of sleep. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Just little victories, check them off. I don't diary. I can't read my own handwriting. No, that's the joke side of it. I'm not a fan of writing, but I know it's really beneficial for those that do. And I actually highly recommend if you can diary things that went well that day and then things that didn't go well that day, you'll see 20 out of 20 times more went right than went wrong.
Absolutely.
And it's mind blowing and life altering. And then you can go back and be like, wow, a lot has gone right in my life. Yeah. And I'm actually doing way better than I was. And this has turned way more from how to be happier than how to lose weight. But I think the important side of it is that it's all relatable. If you're happier, you're going to lose weight, period. Yep.
Well, and if you're taking care of yourself and making yourself a priority and focused on your overall health and wellness, weight loss is a wonderful side effect of that.
Yeah, it's so true. You walk more, you move more, then you lose more weight just because you're happier. And I got to say, I hate to beat a dead horse, but Candice hasn't heard this yet. The best way to release serotonin in your brain is not achieving a goal, but being close to achieving a goal. So having some kind of goal that you're reaching towards, whether it's weight loss, like I want to lose 5% body fat and I'm at 4. That drive itself, that push, that's your serotonin release right there. It doesn't happen after you win the Olympics. It happens that moment before and that drive to get there. So constantly have goals and things to shoot for. If your job's monotonous and you're not a business owner like myself, like us, where you can focus on that, have it in your personal life, have goals for your relationship. Hey, let's make sure we get 50 dates this year, right? So that's slightly less than one a week. And track it and say, wow, we're getting really close. This is awesome. Look at the bonding relationship we have with our significant other. Set a step goal. I want to hit 5,000 steps by the end of the year, like we talked about. That's another actionable step that you're getting closer to and feeling better about. Work on a hobby. Have some kind of, whatever hobby you may have, try to get better at that hobby and have a goal of where you want to be. And then reaching towards that goal, your neurons going to fire like crazy. You're going to feel better. You're going to be burning more calories just because you're focused on something so much. And you're ultimately going to lose weight and feel better and keep going forward. So this is all related, is kind of my point. I know I'm on a giant tangent there, but do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I think, just adding on to that is the idea of self-prioritization, right? When you talk about all of that stuff with, let me make this a goal, let me like work on getting close to it. As I get close to it and I feel more energized and more driven and more focused. But in the act of goal setting and then working towards achieving those goals for yourself, you are prioritizing yourself. You are making yourself important. And again, something we're not necessarily that good at, because so many of us make everybody and everything else more important than us. And so when we start making ourselves important, we do good things for ourselves. We take care of ourselves. And in the process, we replenish all of our energy stores and we feel driven. We feel reconnected with our body and our needs and are able to meet them. And ultimately making ourselves feel truly loved. And that's when we're in the best place possible. So all of that stuff to me at its core is about prioritizing yourself and the immense value that comes from doing that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So I just want to be a little more specific now as opposed to what you work on with your clients. And as someone starts prioritizing their health and getting towards their goal, do you have them do anything else besides what we've talked about? Or is it pretty much just teaching them how to prioritize themselves and teaching them how to focus outside of the relationship with food, or just changing it?
It's a lot more than that, because I have to look at the whole picture. So there are things that naturally come into play. You need to look at your relationship with food, obviously. You need to look at your relationship with your body, but then you also need to look at things like stress and how stress is a factor in your life. And stress is a big one for a lot of us that has a very negative impact on our relationship with food. And so for a lot of people, stress management and making changes either in, how they manage stress or where their stressors are coming from is a key component to reprioritizing themselves and changing their health and wellness. Sleep is a huge factor. A lot of people who have issues with weight and have a yo-yo dieting history also have sort of an unhealthy relationship with sleep. And so we need to look at sleep and what we can do to make sleep better for people, more beneficial, have a healthier relationship with that. Because, we can go on the whole hormone train and how that
And
impacts the
actually, the sleep
hormones.
episode came out last week to this one. So I
Oh,
highly
okay,
recommend
cool.
you check that one out.
Oh, good, good, good. Yeah, because I tell people all the time, if your sleep is messed up, so are your hormones, and you're never going to win a fight between you and your hormones. They're always going to win. So you need to get that in check by managing your sleep, managing your stress, managing your hydration level, managing, looking at joy in your life and where are you finding joy in your life. And I ask this question to people all the time, and it's shocking to me how many people are like, and can't answer it when I ask them what's joyful in their life or what brings them joy or how do they find joy in their life. And they're not doing that. And it's so important to have fun, to play, to laugh, to be silly, to be goofy, to engage in these ways and have this part of you kind of ignited. Again, going back to the idea of self-prioritization and self-love and self-care and how all of these things tie together. So there are so many facets to this that you need to look at. I mean, hydration, we didn't even talk about water, right? And how does that play in? And, social influences and lifestyle factors and how do those things play in? And, there's so many things. And, I say all the time, there's no one size fits all approach to this. So when I do work with people, I customize it to everybody I work with, because some people, we need to spend a lot more time and energy in this camp, whereas others, we have to spend it here. So when I work with somebody, I usually kind of look at the whole picture and then let that kind of guide our work and where we need to focus.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of what we do: address the bigger issue and then kind of work your way back down. I
Mm-hmm.
love the saying, you got to build your foundation before you can go ahead and finish the house. So
Yeah.
really make sure you have a good, strong foundation in all those different areas that you mentioned before you can really start finalizing the details of what else is in there.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
getting an understanding of just the easier things, like track going to bed around the same time, like simple solutions that can make a huge impact of how you feel and how to help you lose weight. I would like to just ask you the same two questions I ask everybody. The first question for you is, if you were to summarize this episode in one or two sentences, what would be your take-home message?
Take care of yourself, look at yourself, make yourself a priority, make yourself important, learn how to love yourself in order to give yourself everything you need.
That's a good one. I like that one.
Oh, good.
And then the second question, the easiest one of all: how can people find you, get a hold of you?
Well, my website is usually the easiest. I have two, actually: meonlybetter.com and theweightlasstherapist.com. Also, all my links to my social media are on there. I post tips and tricks and ideas and stuff every day for people to follow. I have all of my online programs on there. And obviously, you can just reach out to me through there as well.
I love it. Thank you for coming on, and thank you guys for joining us on this week's episode of Health and Fitness Redefined. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button and join us next week as we dive deeper into this ever-changing field. And remember, fitness is medicine. Until next time. For us, we know what it's like to feel unhealthy, depressed, and downright defeated. We want to show others there is a right way, and through fitness, you could do anything you set your mind to. Fitness can give you that motivation, confidence, energy you need to bridge that mental gap and prevent you from missing important life events. We understand it's about feeling better, living longer, and being good examples for our kids. We understand this because we live it. And for us, that's the redefined difference.